to the Los Angeles Rams. Really impressed in incredibly difficult circumstances. Mayfield agrees to terms with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield just wants to play.
This has been a storyline that we have been covering on this channel over the past year, a little bit longer than a year. Actually, it's kind of like a 1-year anniversary of a significant moment in this young man's career. Baker Mayfield has had one hell of a year this past year, and it seems like his career has a brand new chapter. And based upon how this chapter goes, he could potentially have a spot in the league as some sort of bridge quarterback, or he could be out of the league altogether. So we're gonna bring you everything here. Before we get to the content, man, we're in the midst of a record-breaking month for this channel, and to thank you guys, we're doing multiple giveaways. One on Twitter, where when Aaron Rodgers officially gets traded to the New York Jets, we're gonna be giving away multiple followers that retweet and like that tweet, $120 each. On top of that, every single week on the community tab, we're gonna be announcing a giveaway winner for $300 to any subscriber that turns on our notifications on this channel. And now that we got all that out of the way, work! You guys already know that I'm a huge fan of sports memorabilia. I mean, duh. Which is why I'm very excited to partner with Pristine Auction, which is the most trusted sports memorabilia and collection site. Auctions start at just $1, with thousands of items ending daily. For example, they had a Travis Kelce jersey that just sold for $110. Deals like this are happening all the time, and they have just about every player that you could want. They also have a marketplace, iOS and Android app, so you can win items no matter where you are. Every item on pristineauction.com comes with a certificate of authenticity from the industry's most reputable authenticators. And they're hooking up my subscribers fat. Right now, when you use my promo code Mikerophone at Pristine Auction, you'll automatically be entered for a giveaway for a signed Travis Kelce helmet that's worth $500. In addition to that, when you use my promo code Mikerophone, you'll get $10 off at Pristine Auction. That's a hell of a lot of value. So make sure you go to pristineauction.com and use my promo code Mikerophone so you can enter for a chance to win a Travis Kelce signed helmet and $10 off your order. And thank you, Pristine, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Originally, Baker Mayfield was considered to be one of America's favorite underdogs, or he just hated his guts. Regardless, you have to admit, a player that wasn't supposed to be good coming out of high school ended up becoming the #1 overall pick in the 2018 NFL draft, and eventually became the most successful quarterback in the Cleveland Browns history of the past 2 decades. And this man was crushing it in the 2020 season. I know it may seem like a distant memory at this point, but in his 3rd season in the NFL, Baker Mayfield had 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and led the Cleveland Browns to an awesome victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Although the defense of the Cleveland Browns deserves a ton of credit for that incredible wildcard game, Baker Mayfield brought the Cleveland Browns one of its greatest triumphs of the past decade. And things were looking really good for him. After bringing in Kevin Stefanski and a brand new offense, it seems like Baker Mayfield finally hit his stride. And then he had a nightmare 2021 season where he threw 17 touchdowns to 13 interceptions, but that wasn't it. On top of that, Baker Mayfield injured his shoulder, but not only that, it seemed like his top wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. and Baker Mayfield had a bit of a falling out. You guys remember how Odell Beckham Jr.'s father commented on a video, a 10-minute video made of Baker Mayfield straight up missing Odell Beckham Jr. when he was wide open. I understand why that video was made, because at that point there was a narrative about Odell Beckham Jr. potentially being washed, and he cleared that all up when he got released and signed with the LA Rams, which would ironically be a little bit of foreshadowing for Baker Mayfield's career as well. You'll see what I'm talking about in just a second. Baker would have a nightmare 2021, and his value would hit an all-time low following that season. The Cleveland Browns front office decided that they were going to move on from Baker Mayfield in quite possibly one of the most aggressive ways I think I've ever seen. 1 year removed from the Cleveland Browns' greatest season in the past 2 decades, they decided to pursue Deshaun Watson. Now, during this pursuit of Deshaun Watson, about a year ago, Baker Mayfield made the biggest mistake of his entire life. And I know this sounds like a bit of an exaggeration, but no, I'm not kidding. This one particular mistake may have costed Baker Mayfield millions and millions of dollars. Or you could actually make an argument it's either this mistake or the fact that he he decided to play hurt during the 2021 NFL season. You see, if Baker Mayfield decided to rest and rehabilitate his shoulder the moment he got injured during the 2021 season, the last memory the Cleveland Browns would have had of him would have been Baker Mayfield leading the Cleveland Browns to an awesome playoff victory against their division rival. Now, all they could think about is Baker Mayfield missing Odell Beckham Jr. when he was wide open, Baker Mayfield making horrible throws because of his injured shoulder. Baker thought he was being courageous by playing hurt, but he was actually sabotaging his own career, which also could explain why Lamar Jackson refused to play at the latter part of the season last year. It just wasn't worth it. His career would be at stake. He could cost himself millions of dollars. You know what happened to Robert Griffin III. That's how his career ended early and how he costed himself millions and millions of dollars. But if that wasn't the biggest mistake of his career, this for sure was. 1 year ago, Baker Mayfield decided to post a beautiful, empathetic, touching note, a goodbye, a farewell, a so long to Cleveland. And honestly, it was the most cringy and horrible thing he could have done for his career. But if you guys forgot how this note went, let me remind you, because it's its 1 year anniversary. Cleveland. The past 4 years have been nothing short of truly life-changing since I heard my name called in the draft to go to Cleveland. This is not a message with a hidden meaning. This is strictly to thank the city of Cleveland for embracing my family and me. We have made many memories and shared growing in this process through all the ups and downs. I have no clue what happens next, which is the meaning behind the silence I have had during the duration of this process. Now, for those of you guys that forget the context of this, at this point, the Cleveland Browns just said that they were interested in Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson wanted nothing to do with Cleveland. By the way, this is when he was going around and paying visits to the New Orleans Saints, the Carolina Panthers, the Atlanta Falcons. At this point, no deal has been reached, if you guys remember. That's why I think this was a horrific mistake. But let me finish the note for you because it gets way, way, way worse. I can only control what I can, which is trusting in God's plan throughout this process. I have given this franchise everything I have. That is something I've always done at every stage and at every level, and that will not change wherever I take my next snap. Whatever happens, I just want to say thank you to the fans who truly embraced who I am and the mentality that aligned me so well with this city's hardworking people. Cleveland will always be a part of Emily and my story, and will always be thankful for the impact that it has had and will have in our lives. Sincerely, Baker Reagan Mayfield. I love how you had to include his middle name in there. It's just something you wrote in your notepad on your iPhone. It's not that deep. The reason why I found this to be ironic is how he discussed how silent he was being, but at this point, no trade was made. Deshaun Watson would literally tell the Browns to go f themselves, and then the Browns would pull up and tell Deshaun Watson that they're gonna give this man the craziest contract in NFL history. A contract that's so crazy that it's resulting in the Baltimore Ravens not being able to reach a contract extension with Lamar Jackson. Yes, this has been the problem over the past year. Lamar Jackson's looking at the Browns and saying,
well, look at the Browns. They gave Deshaun Watson a 5-year, $230 million fully guaranteed deal.
The Ravens are saying,
hey, the Browns are f***ing dumbasses, so we don't really do that.
And now there's a little bit of a standstill there. This was before that, by the way. Eventually, the Browns would make Deshaun Watson an offer that he couldn't refuse, on top of trading 3 first-round picks, 2 fourth-round picks, and a third-round pick in order to have the luxury of paying him this amount of money. And then sitting through 12 games in the year that he would have the smallest cap hit on his team to watch him play. This is where Baker Mayfield's biggest mistake comes into play, by the way. I've said this multiple times on the channel. If Baker Mayfield truly stayed quiet and didn't go on this huge podcasting tour where he would talk about his feelings and how hurt he is by the Cleveland Browns doing him like this, his career could have been different. Browns would have turned to Baker Mayfield during those first 12 games instead of Jacoby Brissett. We all know how Baker Mayfield is practically a cheat code whenever he is at this stage of the Baker Mayfield cycle. This is the underdog mentality part of the Baker Mayfield cycle. To be honest, the Cleveland Browns schedule wasn't that hard last year. I think he could have made it work, especially considering the improvements they made on that offense. They brought in Amari Cooper, for crying out loud. But Baker decided to get emotional, and then he got traded to the Carolina Panthers. We always talk about this. If you want to be successful as a quarterback in the NFL, 1, you have to be pretty good. 2, you have to be pretty intelligent. But I'd say 70% of it has to do with the team you go to. If you go to a dysfunctional team that is currently in a transitional period, or a head coach that clearly has no idea what he's doing, then your career could kind of go into the trash. But if you you happen to get selected by a team that knows what they're doing and knows how to develop you as a quarterback and doesn't give up on you, say like a team like the New York Giants that didn't give up on Daniel Jones, then you could possibly have a good career in the NFL. It really depends on the situation you're in, which is why I actually believe that if the Cleveland Browns selected Josh Allen in the 2018 NFL draft, Josh Allen would have been a bust. I believe that. I firmly believe that. Let me know if you agree with me in the comment section down below. But instead, he got traded to the Carolina Panthers, who had Matt Rule as their coach. He got traded there like 3 weeks before the season, by the way. I don't know if you guys remember. So he had to come in and learn a brand new playbook. Matt Rule would get fired in the middle of the season. Baker Mayfield would get injured sometimes. They would play musical chairs with the quarterback position. 1 week it would be Baker, 1 week it would be Sam Darnold, 1 week it would be PJ Walker. It didn't work. He looked horrible. At a specific point, the Panthers looked at Baker Mayfield and just cut him loose. And this is where the foreshadowing comes into play, because Sean McVay, one of the most brilliant minds in the NFL, would sign Baker Mayfield when Matthew Stafford got injured. Bring in Baker Mayfield. He would have a remarkable debut game where he would have like 2 to 3 games to prepare, but still would come out and ball out, and would actually finish the season looking fairly decent as a QB. He went from a 58% completion percentage and throwing 6 touchdowns to 6 interceptions with the Carolina Panthers to a 64% completion percentage while throwing for 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions with the Rams. Now, the sample size is way too small to determine how significant of an improvement that would be, because he played 6 games with the Panthers and 4 games with the Rams. But regardless, the reason I'm giving you this gigantic recap of Baker Mayfield's career, my apologies if it went a little long. You guys know how much I'm passionate about the Baker Mayfield subject, and I think there's a huge lesson we could take away from this is, instead of Baker Mayfield signing a Marcus Mariota-like contract to go to the Atlanta Falcons and potentially be their bridge quarterback, or signing a contract extension with any particular team, or signing a big contract with a team that could use a starting QB in the NFL after they saw a good sample size from him on the Cleveland Browns last year, he's going to a team on a prove-it deal, and it's a pretty small prove-it deal at that. According to Ian Rappaport, Tom Pelissero, Adam Schefter, and every single insider in the world, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have finally found the man that could potentially replace Tom Brady. Correction, they got it down to these 2 people. First one is Kyle Trask, a player that they drafted a few years ago in the 2nd round that had the luxury of sitting behind Tom Brady to watch how the greatest of all time prepares for his games. And they decided to bring him some competition. Baker Mayfield is an underdog again. And the best part about this situation is, instead of having like a couple of weeks to prepare, he now has about 5 months to prepare with this team. He also potentially has quite possibly the greatest assortment of weapons on this team in NFL history, but we'll get to that in just a sec. The Bucs are finalizing a deal with former #1 overall pick Baker Mayfield, per sources. Finished his 5th season strong after landing with the Rams. Now he gets a chance to take over for Brady in Tampa and is still only 27. You guys want to guess how much he's getting paid for this? I know to us it's a lot of money, but to a quarterback, this isn't a lot of money. Instead of signing a $25 million contract, he's signing an $8 million contract to potentially compete with Kyle Trask. Now, if he could win this and he cements himself as the starting QB of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in a division that I consider to be relatively wide open, you got Mike Evans, you got Chris Godwin, you have Russell Gage over there. I think there's a chance that this could be his home for a while. I think there's a chance that he could even convince the Buccaneers not to draft another quarterback depending on his performance. Or he could just be a high-end bridge quarterback. It really depends on how this season shakes out. But if there is a cautionary lesson that we could take from the Baker Mayfield situation, it's the fact that you should never, ever play for your team when you're hurt. I mean, there's examples in basketball with Isaiah Thomas and the Boston Celtics. There's examples with football with Baker Mayfield and Robert Griffin III, and, well, what Lamar Jackson did last year. If there's any athlete watching this at all whatsoever, which, by the way, if there is, don't forget me when you blow up, make sure to never play while you're hurt, because it could potentially ruin your career. Another lesson is make sure to stay quiet and fly under the radar when it makes sense to do so, because if Baker Mayfield just accepted the fact that he's going to have to back up Deshaun Watson, he would have played 12 games with a system that he was fairly comfortable with, and he could have potentially played himself into a larger contract with a different team. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comment section down below. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.